She didn't know his name. He didn't remember it either. When Isla Munro dove into the storm-swollen lake to save a stranger from drowning, she wasn't looking for praise or gratitude, just doing what her heart told her to do. A simple woman, living a quiet life in a forgotten lakeside town, Isla had no idea that the man gasping for breath in her arms carried a secret that would change everything. He had no ID, no phone, just a scar down his shoulder and haunted eyes that refused to sleep. For days, he barely spoke. For weeks, he worked odd jobs around town, hiding from something, or someone. And then he vanished. But when powerful men in black cars came asking questions, when whispers of wealth and danger stirred the calm waters of Pinebrook, Isla realized, she hadn't just saved a man, she'd pulled a billionaire out of the water, and someone wanted him back. As we dive deeper into the heart of the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments section below. And remember to turn on the notification bell, so you're the first to know whenever we release new content. The morning after the storm, Isla found the man awake in her guest shed, sitting upright with a blanket draped over his shoulders. Rain still tapped at the windows, but the thunder had passed. So had the chaos, or so she thought. He watched her with eyes that were cautious but alert, like a man who hadn't trusted anyone in a very long time. "You nearly drowned," she said, offering him a cup of tea. "You remember anything?" He looked down at the steaming mug, then shook his head slowly. "Bits and pieces. Caleb. I think that's my name. Caleb." She could tell he was lying, or maybe not lying, just hiding. His voice carried the weight of someone used to giving orders but now forced to take shelter like a hunted animal. He flinched when her dog barked. He refused to sleep in the house. He worked on her garden fence like he owed her his life. But what stood out the most was this: he never asked for a phone, never tried to call anyone. It was like he didn't want to be found. Still, Isla let him stay. Something in her gut told her this man wasn't dangerous, but he was running from something that was. As the days turned into weeks, Caleb began to open up, in quiet gestures. He fixed her porch. He taught her brother how to whittle wood. He watched the lake with longing, but no matter how close they got, he never let her in fully. Because Caleb wasn't just a man with a secret. He was a secret. And Pinebrook wasn't as far from the real world as they thought. Something about him didn't add up. He chopped firewood with precision, but his hands had no calluses. He fixed her generator in minutes, yet claimed to have never handled tools before. He used phrases no local ever did, like liquid assets and holding pattern. And every time she asked where he came from, he'd change the subject or simply disappear for hours, wandering the forest trails alone. One night, as they sat under a blanket of stars, Isla broke the silence. "What are you running from, Caleb?" He hesitated, then looked her dead in the eye. "Have you ever wished you could just disappear?" She didn't answer. He didn't need her to. The tension between them grew, not from distance, but from closeness. Every touch, every glance, every unfinished sentence felt like a secret, one he desperately wanted to tell, but couldn't. Then came the incident at the town market. A stranger, sharp-suited, cold-eyed, arrived asking questions, flashing a photo of Caleb, offering money. "He's dangerous," the man said. "He's not who you think he is." Isla said nothing, just watched from behind a stack of peaches, heart pounding. When she got home, Caleb was already packing. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have never stayed this long." She blocked the door. "Then tell me who you really are." Silence. A flicker of pain in his eyes. "I can't." With that, he was gone, into the woods, into the night, without a goodbye. Isla didn't sleep for 3 days. Not until she found a scrap of paper tucked beneath her flower pots. It was a sketch of her, sitting by the lake. On the back, scribbled in rushed, smudged ink, just one name, Caleb Hawthorne. She Googled it, and froze. Missing billionaire, presumed dead, vanished 2 years ago after a corporate betrayal worth millions. And now, he was here, hiding in her garden. And whoever had come to find him, wasn't there to bring him home. They were there to silence him, for good. Isla tried to convince herself he was gone for good. She focused on tending her garden, helping at the local diner, and ignoring every news article that whispered the name Caleb Hawthorne. But late at night, when the wind rustled the trees or her dog perked up at a sound, she wondered if he was out there, watching, hiding, bleeding. Then, 2 weeks after his disappearance, he returned. Not with flowers, not with explanations, but with blood on his shirt, bruises on his ribs, and a fire in his eyes. "They found me," he said, collapsing on her porch. Isla pulled him inside and tended to his wounds. This time, she didn't ask questions, just listened as he finally unraveled the truth. 2 years ago, Caleb Hawthorne had been set to inherit a billion-dollar shipping empire from his late grandfather. But someone close, his uncle, had orchestrated a fake boating accident to eliminate him and seize control. Caleb had survived but lost everything: his name, identity, wealth. He chose to vanish, to survive. "But when you saved me, Isla," he whispered, eyes locked on hers, "you didn't just save my life. You reminded me what it feels like to be seen, not as a name, not as a target, as a man." Isla's heart ached. She had known he was different, but not broken, not betrayed. That night, the air between them shifted. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her breath caught. The pain, the distance, the longing, it all crashed into one searing kiss beneath the dim kitchen light. There was no perfect music, no grand gesture. Just two damaged hearts finally letting go of fear. But their moment didn't last. By morning, her home had been broken into, files rifled, tracks in the mud. Caleb's hiding place was no longer safe. "You need to go to the authorities," she urged. "Tell the world you're alive." He shook his head. "If I do, they'll kill you too." She didn't flinch. "Then let's fight back." That was the turning point, not just for their hearts, but for everything that followed. Because love wasn't enough now. They needed a plan, a way to expose the truth, and a way to survive. Together, they made a plan. Caleb had hidden flash drives containing records of illegal offshore transfers and falsified death certificates, evidence that could unravel his uncle's empire. With Isla's help, he would send them to an investigative journalist who had once exposed a major government scandal, a woman Caleb believed he could trust. But first, he needed time. So they stayed hidden in Pinebrook, posing as a couple, Isla running her garden stall at the weekend market, Caleb quietly repairing boats by the dock. They acted like small-town lovers, laughing over lemonade and dancing barefoot under moonlight. But behind every smile, every tender touch, was tension. One mistake, and everything would shatter. And then it did. It started with Isla's younger brother, Danny. He had grown suspicious, resentful, jealous of the attention Caleb received from the community, and from Isla. One night, drunk and bitter, he followed Caleb into the woods and found the backup drive hidden in an old tackle box. He didn't understand what it was, but he knew one thing: people were offering money for a man named Caleb Hawthorne. Danny made a call. He didn't realize he'd just signed his sister's death sentence. Within 48 hours, Pinebrook changed. 2 black SUVs appeared near the edge of town. The diner owner said men in suits had asked for the gardener with the scar. Caleb and Isla knew they had to leave, but it was too late. That night, as they prepared to flee, the house exploded. A gas line, rigged. A warning. They survived. Barely. Hiding in a storm drain while the fire raged behind them. And that's when Caleb found the betrayal. Danny's phone. Left behind. Still open. A text from a blocked number. "Thank you. You'll be paid. Stay quiet." Isla was shattered. "My own brother," she whispered, unable to breathe. Caleb looked at her, guilt twisting in his chest. "I brought this to you. I never should have stayed." "No," she said firmly, tears blazing down her cheeks. "You didn't bring this. Your enemies did. And they messed with the wrong woman." This was no longer about money or revenge. This was personal. And Isla Monroe, quiet, kind, overlooked Isla, was about to become the storm they never saw coming. They had nowhere left to hide. The fire had gutted Isla's home. Her brother Danny had vanished, likely paid off and sent far from the blast zone. And Caleb's enemies were closing in. But Isla? She wasn't broken. She was rising. They retreated to an abandoned hunting cabin up in the ridge, one that once belonged to Isla's late grandfather. No power, no signal, but safety in silence. For a few precious nights, they had peace. It was during one of those long, firelit evenings that Caleb opened his heart completely. "There's something else I never told you," he said, eyes dark with fear. Isla braced herself. "I wasn't just running from my uncle. I was running from guilt." He took a breath. "A long, shaking one. 2 years ago, before I disappeared, a young woman died. She worked in the shipping docks, blew the whistle on a smuggling route tied to my family's ships. She trusted me to protect her, and I didn't." He looked up, eyes shimmering. "I was too afraid of losing everything. So I stayed quiet." A week later, she was dead. Silence. The confession weighed heavy in the room. But Isla didn't look away. "You didn't kill her," she whispered. "You just weren't strong enough then. But look at you now." That night, they made love like it might be their last time. Not because they were fearless, but because they had finally shed the lies. The next morning, they went to war. Isla contacted the journalist using an old ham radio her grandfather once used during storms. It took hours, but finally, they made contact. A meeting was arranged, in a nearby ghost town, long abandoned after a mine collapse. It was perfect, remote, quiet, no surveillance. But it was also a trap. They arrived to find the journalist tied up, bruised, forced to lure them in. The men had known. They'd been listening, following. As Caleb stepped forward, a gun cocked behind Isla's head. "You really thought you could outsmart us?" a voice sneered. "No," Isla whispered, not afraid, because she wasn't alone. From the trees, a hidden figure emerged, rifle steady. "Danny, let my sister go," he growled. And then, everything exploded. Gunfire, shouts, dust and panic. When it cleared, one of the attackers was wounded. The others fled. And Caleb, covered in blood but alive, crawled to Isla and pulled her into his arms. She looked up at Danny, stunned. "You came back." He nodded, ashamed. "I never meant for it to go that far. I just wanted something to go right for once." Tears fell, but this time, they brought healing. With evidence secured, eyewitness accounts from Danny, and the journalist finally free, the truth couldn't be buried any longer. Within days, headlines across the country screamed, "Missing heir returns to expose billion-dollar fraud. Shipping empire shattered by internal conspiracy." Caleb's uncle was arrested. So were the men who tried to kill him, and Isla. Caleb's identity was restored not through a press conference or a public parade, but through justice. Quiet, steady justice. But what no one expected. He turned it all down. The mansions, the cars, the boardrooms. He walked away. Instead, he stood in front of Isla's new home, built on the same patch of land where her old house had burned. A modest place with sunflower beds out front and a porch swing that creaked in the wind. "You're giving it up?" she asked, watching him as he stepped out of the pickup. He smiled, not the polished, performative grin of a billionaire's son, but the crooked, sincere smile of a man who had been broken and rebuilt by love. "I don't need to own the world," he said. "Just want to share a piece of it, with you." Isla's eyes welled with tears. She wasn't the same woman who found him in the woods. She wasn't afraid to be seen anymore, to be strong, to fight. They didn't rush into a wedding or splashy vows, but they did plant roots. Together, Caleb started a maritime safety foundation in honor of the woman he couldn't save, making sure no whistleblower would be silenced again. Isla expanded her garden into a local co-op, where women who'd faced domestic abuse or financial hardship could learn to grow and sell organic produce. And Danny? He stayed. He took a job at the co-op, made peace with Isla, and turned his guilt into something good. But the real beauty was in the small moments. Isla waking up to Caleb making coffee and burning toast. Caleb watching Isla in the garden, brushing dirt off her cheek. The two of them sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, knowing they had survived hell together. One evening, Caleb held her close and whispered, "If I had to get lost all over again just to find you, I would. Every time." And that was enough. Not riches, not revenge, but love, earned, fought for, and forever theirs. The golden sun dips beneath the trees. Isla and Caleb sit on the porch swing. The air is quiet except for the soft creak of wood and the distant hum of crickets. Caleb, arms around her, voice low, "If I had to get lost all over again just to find you, I would. Every time." Isla, smiling softly, "You didn't just find me, you made me brave enough to be found. Caleb, and you made me human again." They sit in silence, watching the last rays of sunlight fade. It's the grand opening of the women's co-op. A handmade banner hangs overhead, rooted in hope. Neighbors gather, laughter in the air. A little girl hands Caleb a flower. He bends down, smiling warmly, accepting it. Isla, to a friend, he never lets anyone call him Mr. Weston, just Caleb, like the money never mattered. Woman, and yet, he's donated more than anyone else ever has. Quietly, Isla watches Caleb talk to the women, help set up tables, carry crates of produce. There's no arrogance, just humility, and peace. Caleb stands where Isla once found him, at the riverbank. He stares into the mist-covered water, his reflection flickering. Behind him, Isla approaches, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Isla, didn't think I'd find you back here again. Caleb thought I should come full circle." Pauses, "This was the place I stopped being a ghost." She hands him the coffee. "Isla, and started being mine." They smile. A quiet, heartfelt moment. Caleb leans in, touches her forehead with his. "Caleb, you saved me once, but I think I'm finally ready to start saving myself too." Lush, vibrant, joyful, Kids run between garden beds. Women harvest produce. Danny plays guitar under a tree while a dog snoozes beside him. Caleb now teaches maritime ethics at a local university. He's mentoring, rebuilding, living. Isla holds a letter in her hand, her eyes wide. Caleb, reading over her shoulder, a Federal Safety Commission hereby awards Isla James the Rural Humanitarian Medal for outstanding courage. He grins, look at you, my hero. Isla, surprised, I didn't even know I was nominated. Caleb, you didn't have to be. People notice the light even when it doesn't ask to be seen. She turns, gazing into his eyes. Isla, this, us, was never part of my plan. Caleb neither was almost dying in a stranger's woods. They laugh softly. Then he drops to one knee. Caleb, TD, but maybe, just maybe, fate has better plans than we do. He opens a small, wooden box. Inside isn't a massive diamond, but a simple gold ring with the engraving, found in the fire. Isla, tears brimming, yes. No fanfare, no photographers, just love, real, rooted, undeniable. The swing rocks gently. Isla's head rests on Caleb's shoulder. Danny's guitar echoes faintly in the distance. Fireflies glow. A whisper of wind blows past as the camera pans upward into the stars. Caleb, you can spend your whole life building walls to protect yourself, but sometimes, the person you're meant for crashes straight through them.